Let's talk about the fantasy implications of Cal Raleigh's 60 home run season, and will Logan Gilbert be a top 5 pitcher in 2026? We're talking all that and more on the Seattle Mariners 2025 team review.
You are Locked On Fantasy Baseball, your daily fantasy baseball podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, fantasy baseball fanatics, and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, we're a number one source of fantasy baseball knowledge, and thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. I'm your host, Dominick Martino, riding solo today, as you can see if you're watching on YouTube. And if you are watching on YouTube and you haven't already, hit that little bell below. It's going to subscribe you to the channel and give you a notification every time we drop a new episode. If you're once again listening on the audio side of things, once again, make sure you subscribe. And if listening on a platform like Apple or Spotify that allows 5-star ratings and reviews, we would truly appreciate it if you do that for us. And, today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. And today, we're talking about those Seattle Mariners and, the fantasy implications for 2026 based off what they did in 2025. I talked about Cal Raleigh at the top, that monster 60 home run season. Do we believe in the power? Can he be just as dominant again? And where are we drafting him? Julio Rodriguez, we know who he is at this point, but you know what? Can he, still be trusted to be taken at the first round, mark where, he's projected to be taken? And what are we doing with these starting pitchers? We got George Kirby, we got Logan Gilbert, we got Luis Castillo, we got Bryan Woo. The starting pitching is great, but where are all of these guys to be drafted in 2026? And then we've got a top prospect at the end. We're talking about Colt Emerson. Who is he? And we'll break down what he might be expected to do in 2026. All right, guys, let's get into it. First up, we got Cal Raleigh. Man, what a season. If, you invested in Raleigh, it paid off big time on 2025 season. Raleigh played in 159 games, 596 at-bats, 110 runs, 24 doubles, a monstrous 60 homers, 125 RBIs. He even chipped in 14 steals, 97 walks to 188 strikeouts, and he hit 247. What a year for the guy. You couldn't have asked for more from anybody. The big thumper was just thumping home runs left and right just throughout the season consistently. And, really helped bring people those fantasy baseball championships, is what we always strive to do. Raleigh was coming off the board as the 5th catcher around pick 87. And I'll tell you this, Matt and I always talk about we don't want to invest in catchers too early. And right around there's the sweet spot. Matt and I talked about a lot of, Cal Raleigh last year, Wilson Contreras, Shea Langoliers, guys like that were being taken later. I know I talked about Ivan Herrera a lot, and a lot of those guys, paid off. Sometimes you don't always predict who it's going to be. You kind of just, you want to know where to be drafting your guys, and, taking Cal Raleigh in that spot paid off big time last year. I think it's going to be like, hey, he's the unanimous number one catcher coming into 2026. I think he'll be taken way too highly. The number one catcher was William Contreras coming into 2025. He was being taken at the 33rd pick overall. I think Raleigh's going to be taken in the same spot. I don't think he should be taken there. Then again, I don't think any catcher should be taking, there at any point in time, because that's just, it's just, you're never really going to get the results that, you're looking for, right? I think Raleigh can be dominant again. I think it's 40 home run plus power easily. Only 7 guys in the history of baseball have hit 60 or more. I don't think it happens again for Raleigh in 2026, right? I don't foresee that happening. But could he hit 40 homers with 85 runs, 100 RBIs, and hit 230, 240? He could definitely do that for sure. But I just can't invest in him in, the 2nd, 3rd round where I think he's going to be taken. I think people are going to, oversell it. I think people are going to be talking 50 plus home runs again. And then even when I said it's kind of like a ceiling, right? I wouldn't be shocked if we see a similar year to the 2024 year from Raleigh, right? But I think the batting average, he made a lot of improvements in the batting average department. I think he could be closer to a 230, 240 guy with, 35 homers, 100 RBIs, 80 runs. The steals, the 14 steals career high. The sprint speed is horrible, so I don't expect Raleigh to, be stealing bases like that again. I mean, if Seattle lets him and there's the opportunity to do it, maybe he gets to 8. But once again, it's not something I'm projecting. If there's any chance that Raleigh goes in a standard 12-man league, if he goes in the 5th, 6th round, maybe I could think about it and justify it there, but I can't justify it in the 3rd just because you don't buy into the career year and you're basically saying, hey, I need you to reach, 40, 50 home runs, 100 RBIs, 100 runs, a 250 batting average. And I'm not, going to be relying on, taking a guy like Raleigh there, at the catcher position where I feel like he could wait and you could still get great value. I just don't think we should do it in 2026 if it's going to be in the 2nd, 3rd round for a guy like Raleigh. Love the year he had though, and the big thumper definitely deserves some kudos for it. But let's move on. I digress. Let's talk about J-Rod. Let's talk about Julio Rodriguez. If you guys have been, around this podcast or listened to Matt and I, for, since back in the day when we were the fantasy MDs, I was always a big Julio Rodriguez guy. I told you guys to draft him, coming out of his rookie year. He's a great player, man. He really is awesome. It's just, I feel like there's another level here. Julio's been around for a while, but I think people forget, hey, he's only 24 years old and been in the league 4 years. He's the 3-time All-Star already, so we kind of forget how young he is. But I feel like there's just going to be a year where Julio is going to be competing for, the MVP award. I know he's already, been in somewhat of the race, in previous years, right? But I believe in the kid. I really am a big J-Rod guy. We'll talk about the numbers from 2025. 160 games played, 652 at-bats, 106 runs, 31 doubles, 4 triples, 32 bombs, 95 RBIs, 30 steals, 44 walks, 252 strikeouts, and he hit 267. And, through his career, Julio is a career 274 guy. Like I said, he averages about 30 home runs a year, 85 runs, about 85 RBIs as well, steals about 30 plus bags a year. Like I said, I just think there's a year where Julio could go crazy. I think the speed is legit. The power is legit. He's just kind of do it for a whole season straight. Julio is a notorious slow starter and has, trouble in the early months getting it going. And then just when he gets to the finish line, he's usually just super, super dominant. He's dealt with injuries in past year. And I think we just believe in the talent that, Julio was coming up through the minors, was a number 1 overall prospect, I believe, at one point. If not, he was always a top 3 guy. For me, I had him on. It was always him and Bobby Witt going back and forth. I had Julio, number 1 for me, but, a lot of people had Bobby number 1 as well. But even if you look at the underlying stuff, when you look at sprint speed for Julio, 93rd percentile. Look at the underlying stuff for batting average, batting average, 284. Average exit velocity, he's in an 87th percentile at almost a 92 average exit velocity. Bat speed is fantastic. If he just squared the ball up and found the sweet spot a little bit more, I think that takes him to the next level. But a kid who's only 24 years old and coming off, he's played a lot of games before, so I can't even say he hasn't played a lot of games before. But, dealt with some injury in 2024. I think just another year of Julio getting his feet under him and just, hey, if he keeps it riding from opening day till, the end of the season, I think there's 40 home run upside. I think there's 50 steal upside. Obviously the runs and RBIs, he's done it before. I think those can be fantastic. And we don't talk about the upside and batting average, but I talked about the underlying stuff. You're looking at a guy who ex batting average last season, 284, could hit 280, 290 easily. Julio could. I'm buying into 2026 potentially being Julio's year. Let's talk about where he was drafted before we move on real quick. Last season, Julio was coming off the board as the 17th pick, overall on average. I think he should be taken in the first round. I have him as a top 5 outfielder in my rankings going into 2026. So Julio could be that guy. If you want to jump in on him, you have, let's say you have, that turn pick in the first round, you're picking like 12, 13. I want to pair Julio with maybe somebody who's a little bit more consistent, at that point. But, the breakout upside is through the roof here. But before we move on and we talk about Randy Arozarena, Eugenio Suarez, we talk about the great starting pitching core with Kirby, Gilbert, and more coming up next. And all right, guys, I want to talk to you about my friends over at FanDuel. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score to the next fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into same-game parlays for a shot with a bigger payout. It keeps getting, the more exciting as the game goes on, especially when your team's making that late-game push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So, guys, I've been doing fantasy basketball this year, and I've been a big basketball fan, my whole life. I'm going, man, anything Wemby, and I know it sounds corny, but he's averaging almost 5 blocks a game, so I'm taking the blocks on Wemby, I'm taking the rebounds, even the points, and then if you want to go another guy, as I'm talking about the Spurs, I like Stephon Castle for points, threes, even assists if the line looks right. And to do all of this, you're going to head over to FanDuel.com to sign up, play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. And all right, guys, let's keep things pushing here. And let's talk about Eugenio Suarez, who, finished the year with Seattle, did start the year with the Diamondbacks. But, we're still going to talk about him on this episode, right? Eugenio Suarez, another, big year, right? He hit... he hit 49 home runs this year, was an absolute monster. Did struggle in his time with Seattle, and his time with Seattle was only 13 home runs and a 189 batting average. But I do believe he is a free agent coming, up into the 2026 season. But did want to include him on a team review episode, so he finished the year with Seattle. That's where we're including him. Let's do the full season numbers. 159 games, 588 at-bats, 91 runs, 28 doubles, 49 bombs, 118 RBIs, 4 steals, hit 228. Suarez, he's been kind of a very similar guy throughout his whole career. If we look back through, 2018, 2019, he was in Cincinnati, so the batting average was a bit higher because that's a really great ballpark to hit in. And, the league started to figure him out in later years. But when we look at, we could say 2021 through 2025, about 30 home runs a year for Suarez, about 100 RBIs or, 85 RBIs. The runs, have been up the last 2 seasons, but if you want to average it, it's about 80 runs. The batting average is about 240-ish. So that's what I expect from Suarez, right? There's no need. I'm not banking. He's another guy like Cal Raleigh. I think he's going to be overdrafted coming into, 2026. People are going to look at that 49 home runs and just think that, hey, that's what we should be doing. It's just locked in, 35, 40 home runs easy. But the whole thing is, let's think about the landing spot. Because once again, I am pretty sure, just do want to confirm, he is going to be a free agent. He is going to be a free agent this upcoming offseason. So we'll see where the landing spot is for Suarez. If it's back in Seattle, I don't like it. If he goes to Arizona again, I think we move him up. I have Suarez as the 8th third baseman right now. Going into 2026, that feels a little bit high for me. I just honestly won't be the guy like I probably won't be the guy with Suarez. I'll be honest with you. I had a lot of Suarez in 2025, but that's because, hold on a second. I'm going to tell you guys where he was coming off the board. It was the 15th third baseman around pick 146. So, and then the 8th third baseman was coming off the board at pick 88. I guess if you're in your point in your draft, if you need a lot of power and you don't necessarily need great batting average, I guess we could be taking Suarez there. I wouldn't be super mad at it now that I'm looking at where that actually would be draft capital wise. Not atrocious for a guy like Suarez. But then again, we really need the landing spot before we jump in here and commit, or I jump in and commit to how I'm exactly going to be drafting Suarez in 2026. But really, the thing is, it's going to be a lot of power. Should be good runs. Should be good RBIs. Batting average 230, 240. But the upside home run just really is going to depend on the park. I would say if it's a mediocre park, about 30 home runs. If it's a really good landing spot, 35, 40. But let's move on. Let's talk about Randy Arozarena. Mediocre year for Arozarena. 160 games played, 613 at-bats, 95 runs, 32 doubles, a triple, 27 homers, 76 RBIs, 31 steals, with 64 walks, 191 strikeouts, 238 batting average. Now, first year in Seattle for Randy, the power just kind of played, career high 27 home runs, kind of played. That's good for him. Most places, most people that, a big park in Seattle isn't going to play. Played pretty well for Randy. 95 runs, ties a career high, 76 RBIs. Not too bad though. 31 steals, one steal off tying a career high, 238 batting average, a bit low compared to Randy's career 250 mark. Not, when I said mediocre, I meant mediocre for Randy, but then again, I guess I'm wrong. When I'm really deep diving here, looking at these numbers, pretty good year for Randy compared to the draft capital, which I'm scrolling here. He's coming off the board as the 35th outfielder, pick 123. That's actually pretty good value. Not going to lie. You actually made out pretty well if you drafted Randy, and you got 160 games out of him. So he played pretty much every game this season as well. It was good power, good speed. The batting average hurt you. It did hurt you, but for that draft capital, you weren't mad. You probably found your batting average somewhere else. I might be a Randy guy, coming into 2026, just depending on where he's being drafted. My early ranking has him as outfielder number 28. I could see that moving up, though. I could easily see that moving up as I'm looking here. Could I put Randy as my outfielder number 25, 24, low-end outfielder number 2, high-end outfielder number 3? Easily. Because you know what? When we're taking a guy like this, if we're getting it pretty much everything but batting average and RBIs, we could find that somewhere else. We can make that up on our team. Love the value he's going to give you with the, decent home run total, especially in the Seattle park. It played up. The 95 runs was amazing. The 31 steals was also great for Randy. Points league, the walk to strikeout ratio isn't good. So points leagues, Randy might play down a little bit. But even if Randy gets that batting average a little bit closer to his career 250 mark, I think that's found money here with a guy like Randy Arozarena. So I really do actually talking myself into him here. It's funny. I don't think Matt's gonna like that take. I don't think Matt's gonna like that take very much. Let's move on though. Let's give you one of the starting pitchers before we take another break here. Let's do George Kirby. George Kirby, man. He's frustrating for me. Great starting pitcher, has the talent to be a top 10 starting pitcher in fantasy baseball. But just frustrating, man. Just hasn't gotten you the results that we've been looking for the last 2 seasons. Especially last year. In 2025, George Kirby, 23 starts, 4.21 ERA, 10 wins, 126 innings, 137 strikeouts, a 119 whip, It wasn't Kirby's year. Coming off injury, the strikeout total went in the direction that everybody wanted it to go, but the ERA and the WHIP went with it. So that's kind of the sacrifice you make sometimes as a starting pitcher, who's more of a control artist like George Kirby, can pinpoint the ball where he wants it. But the whole thing is he was doing better when he wasn't striking guys out. I would have taken the year that we got from George Kirby in 2024 again this year in 2025. For sure, but he was also overdrafted in 2024 because everyone was building off the 2023 year from Kirby, thinking he was going to get more strikeouts, and it didn't happen. Kirby in 2024, 191 innings, 179 strikeouts. The year before in 2023, very similar, 190 innings, 172 strikeouts, just because of the stuff that Kirby has. Very good stuff, very good breaking stuff, good fastball. We thought he could be better at getting those strikeouts, and it seems like if he wants to get those strikeouts, it's going to have to sacrifice the ERA and the WHIP. I think we'll get a better deal on Kirby coming into 2026. I just don't want to see it get out of control again, like it did in, coming into 2024, where he was overdrafted. He was, being pushed into the top 10, 12 starting pitchers. And it made it like, hey, he has to be your SP1 to win, and for him to be value. Forget that ROP, as Matt would talk about, that return on pick. And it wasn't really getting there. George Kirby was taken as the 22nd starting pitcher, coming into this season. But once again, we talked about that injury, playing part in that. That's the 84th pick overall. I wasn't really mad at that, but once again, you're just paying for him to be, really, really good. And I think Kirby is really, really good, but I think he's more of the guy that we saw in 2024. I think that's what we should be drafting him as. I think he's going to be like a really strong SP2. I probably have him ranked even higher than that because I'm going to be honest with you. Starting pitchers really weak going into 2026. I'll have Kirby as my SP20. I could see that even moving up maybe one or two spots. But I would see Kirby more as a low threes ERA kind of guy, under K per 9, strong whip. But I don't know if we see Kirby, who's going to be 28 in 2026, take that step to be that SP1 who, people had predicted he could be in the past. But let's move on to, let's before we move on and we talk about George Kirby, Luis Castillo, Bryan Woo, and then we do top prospect Colt Emerson. Those names coming up next. Guys, real quick, I got to talk to you about my friends over at Game Time. The NFL season is back, and honestly, there's nothing better than being in the stadium surrounded by fans, cheering your team on. But actually getting tickets, that's the tough part. Queues, login screens, surprise fees, it takes the fun out of all of it. That's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. Game Time is fast, easy, and backed by the Game Time guarantee. You'll always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all fees are included. So the price you see is the price you pay. The app made it super simple. I could even see the exact view from my seat before buying. Fees are included. Know your total up front with no surprise fees at checkout. I was just on the app not too long ago, and let me tell you, I saw some great deals. I'm talking about your favorite NFL games for as low as $100. I love the zone deals too because that makes you even get a better deal. Pick the section, Game Time picks the seats, and you save big. Honestly, it's faster, cheaper, and less stressful than any other way I've ever bought tickets. So download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that promo code is going to be LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket. Go download Game Time today. And all right, guys, let's get into this here. I was excited before the break here. I want to keep it going. I want to talk about some Logan Gilbert going into 2026, right? I talked about how, there's a lot of great pitching here in Seattle. I think Logan Gilbert leads the charge. Another one of their pitchers who dealt with injury this past year, but I think Gilbert, out of all of these pitchers, is the guy who can be the ace, can be that, but I think Gilbert really does have, top 5 starting potential, top 5 starting pitcher potential. 25 starts last year, 3.44 ERA, 131 innings, 173 strikeouts, a 103 whip. Gilbert in 2024, 33 starts, 3.23 ERA, 208 innings, 220 strikeouts, 0.88 whip. Gilbert's control's elite. His strikeout numbers are elite. ERA is elite. Underlying stuff all backs up what Logan Gilbert puts out. I think we should be drafting him. Let me double check my rankings here before I put down a firm number. Yep, I have Logan Gilbert as SP5 going into 2026. I think that's where he should be drafted. I think Logan Gilbert has a monster season this year. He was being drafted as the SP5 last year. Like I said, did wind up dealing with injury though, which was pick 30. I think that's fine. I think you could take him as your number 1. It's a great park, great team. The guy has the stuff to do it. As long as he's healthy, he can easily be the ace on your team and provide, great strikeouts, wins, ERA, fantastic whip. Like I said, all of the underlying stuff backs up the year Gilbert has. We can get into that a smidge before we move on because I do want to cover these other great starting pitchers too. No, let's do a little bit. Let's do a little bit here of it. When you're talking about the underlying stuff for ERA, 3.02 ERA, which was expected ERA, xERA. Batting average against was expected batting average against what the underlying stuff would expect hitters to hit against Logan Gilbert was 212. Got great chasing, got great whiffs. His extension is really good. So the guy, when he's actually like throwing, getting his arm closer to the mound, does a great job with that. Literally the 100th percentile, so he's the best at that. He's 6'6", so that fastball plays up. All his pitches, come in. It's like literally coming in closer to you, so it's less time to adjust. Every split second matters when you're trying to hit a baseball. It's one of the hardest things to do in all of sports. Batters hit 227 against his fastball, 119 against his split, 148 against his curve. Just love everything that a Logan Gilbert does. Draft him in 2026 as your ace with confidence. Let's move on to Luis Castillo. Another good starting pitcher, but I think Luis Castillo is somebody who is more on the downswing in his career. Still a reliable starting pitcher, but just somebody that I kind of want to see where he's being taken. I think he's an SP3, SP4 at this point in his career, but I wouldn't be surprised if this is the year he drops off. Age 32 season last year for Luis Castillo, 32 starts, 3.54 ERA, 180 innings pitched, 162 strikeouts, 118 whip, which is, almost a career high, except for his, earlier years when, Castillo wasn't really who he is now. But, his highest in the last 4 years easily. Strikeouts have went down. The ERA, not down. Has actually went down, in the good way this last year. But the expected ERA was a 3.88. I probably won't have much Luis Castillo going into 2026. I won't encourage you guys to have many shares of him either. But if he winds up being like an SP4 for you, I don't think that's a bad call just because, I still think the ERA won't be atrocious. Though, honestly, I don't even want to say because I don't buy it as I'm saying it. His ERA for the his expected ERA or his FIP for the last 3 years has been over a 3.8. The whip's gone up 3 years in a row, peaking at the 1.18 this year with the 1.16 last year. Don't love it. Don't draft Castillo in 2026. I don't have a lot of time. Let's do Bryan Woo real quick. Or should we say Bryan Woo? I don't know what's going on in Seattle. A lot of pitching injuries, this past year. Woo was another one, who dealt with a little bit. Actually did make 30 starts, but I forget maybe it was 2024 I'm thinking of for Woo. So I guess he was pretty healthy, but Woo, one of the biggest breakout pitchers for, 2025. I'll have a lot of Bryan Woo as well, in 2026, hopefully. 30 starts, 2.94 ERA, 186 innings, 198 strikeouts, and 0.92 whip. The control's great for Bryan Woo. Strikeouts are legit. ERA is legit. Think he's just going to do more of the same with, what he can do, what he's done so far in his career. I have Bryan Woo ranked as SP13. I can see that moving up to even SP11. Might be an ace in 2026. So I think we should be taking him around that spot. Quick on Colt Emerson, the Seattle Mariners top prospect. He is actually, did he crack the top 10? Let me check real quick. I believe he did make the top 10 prospects in all of baseball to finish up the year. Let me double check. Yes, Colt Emerson, the 9th prospect in all of baseball, according to MLB.com. That was to finish up the 2025 season. He is 6 feet tall, 195 pounds. He plays short. Known for his hit tool, has a little bit of power, a little bit of speed. Doesn't overwhelm me with either one of those yet, but like I said, that hit tool is what he's known for. Across 3 levels last year, Colt Emerson hit 285. That was 130 games played. 82 runs. He had 28 doubles, 16 homers, 6 triples, 78 RBIs, 14 steals. He's 20 years old, so still coming into his own, but I think he could make his debut in 2026 for these Mariners. Let's see what he does coming out of spring training. But guys, that is all for today. Please make sure you like, subscribe, comment, rate, and review, and shout out to our everydayers and new listeners for making Locked On Fantasy Baseball your first listen each and every day. And then after you make us your first listen, for your second listen, check out the all new Locked On MLB Game Night, every game, every night, all season long. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find MLB Game Night on Locked On MLB on YouTube, wherever you listen to your podcast. And guys, don't forget to check out the newsletter as well. Until next time, see ya.